The security camera caught everything. Every whispered threat, every calculated move, every moment of a marriage that was about to end in blood. What Sarah Mitchell didn't know was that her own home had become her confession booth, recording every piece of evidence that would eventually put her on death row. This is the story of a woman who thought she had planned the perfect murder, only to discover that technology had been watching her every move for months. What you're about to hear will shake you to your core, because sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones sleeping right next to us. In the next hour, you'll witness how a home security system designed to protect a family became the key evidence in solving a brutal murder. You'll hear actual audio recordings of a wife plotting her husband's death. You'll discover how greed, deception, and cold-blooded calculation led to one of the most documented murders in criminal history. I'm your host, and this is Crime Vault. Before we begin this disturbing journey into the mind of a killer, I want to take a moment to thank each and every one of you watching today. Your support means the world to us here at Crime Vault. The stories we tell matter. These victims deserve to have their truth heard, and your viewership helps us continue this important work. If you're new to our channel and you appreciate the deep investigative work we do to bring you these real stories, please hit that subscribe button right now. It's completely free, and it's the biggest way you can support our mission to bring justice to these victim stories. We have over 200 cases in our archive with new investigations uploaded every week. We're just getting started and we need your help to keep going. Now let's begin. Denver, Colorado, March 15, 2023. The morning sun cast long shadows across the manicured lawns of Cherry Creek, one of Denver's most prestigious neighborhoods. Behind the pristine facade of a $800,000 colonial home, a marriage was about to end in murder. To anyone looking from the outside, David and Sarah Mitchell appeared to have it all. The house was picture perfect, with white columns and a circular driveway that housed two luxury vehicles, a BMW sedan for him, a Mercedes SUV for her. Their social media profiles told a story of romantic weekend getaways, anniversary dinners at five-star restaurants, and holiday celebrations that looked like something out of a magazine. David Mitchell, 42 years old, had the kind of success story that made other people envious. A software engineer at TechFlow Industries, one of Denver's fastest-growing companies, he had climbed from entry-level programmer to senior architect in just 8 years. His annual salary of $180,000 afforded the couple a lifestyle that most people only dream about. Sarah Mitchell, 38, was equally impressive on paper. As a real estate agent with premier properties, she had built a reputation as one of the top sellers in the Denver metropolitan area. Her professional headshots showed a confident woman with perfectly styled blonde hair and a smile that could sell million-dollar homes. And she did. Regularly. They had been married for 8 years, together for 10, high school sweethearts who had found each other again after college. Their love story was the kind that made other couples jealous. They had weathered the early struggles of building careers, the pressure of buying their first home, and the natural challenges that come with any long-term relationship. But perfection, as we'll discover over the next hour, was nothing more than a carefully constructed lie, and technology was about to expose every crack in that perfect facade. The first sign that something was seriously wrong came from someone who knew David better than anyone else. His sister, Rebecca Martinez. In January 2023, just 2 months before David's death, Rebecca noticed that her weekly phone calls with her brother had become increasingly strained. David had always been the type to call me back within hours, Rebecca would later tell investigators, her voice breaking with emotion during the recorded interview. We talked every Sunday without fail for 15 years, but suddenly, he was taking days to return my calls. When I finally reached him, something in his voice was different. He sounded hollow, like he was afraid to speak freely. Rebecca wasn't imagining things. During their last conversation on February 25th, just 3 weeks before his death, David had asked her an unusual question that would haunt her forever. "Becca," he had said using the childhood nickname he hadn't used in years, "if something happened to me, would you make sure Mom gets my college ring? It's in the safe. The combination is Mom's birthday." When Rebecca asked him why he was talking like that, David had quickly changed the subject, but she could hear something in the background, Sarah's voice, sharp and angry, though Rebecca couldn't make out the words. He kept looking over his shoulder during our conversations. Rebecca recalled, "Even when we were just talking on the phone, I asked him if everything was okay at home, and he got quiet for a long time. Then he said, 'I love you, Becca. Remember that.' And he hung up." What Rebecca didn't know was that David had been living in terror for months. His marriage to Sarah had become a psychological prison, and the bars were closing in around him with each passing day. He was walking on eggshells in his own home, afraid that any wrong word or action might trigger another one of Sarah's violent outbursts. Its co-workers at TechFlow Industries had noticed changes too. Mark Stevens, David's closest friend at work, later told police that David had started staying late at the office for no apparent reason. He used to be the first one out the door at 5 p.m., Mark explained. He was always excited to get home to Sarah, but in the months before he died, he would find excuses to stay until 8 or 9 p.m. When I asked him about it, he just said he needed to catch up on work, but I could see his computer screen. He wasn't working, he was just sitting there, staring at nothing. As investigators would later discover during their deep dive into the Mitchells' finances, the couple's luxurious lifestyle was built on a foundation of debt and deception that was about to collapse entirely. Detective Maria Rodriguez, a 15-year veteran of the Denver Police Department's homicide unit, spent weeks unraveling the Mitchells' financial records. What she found was a house of cards that was already tumbling down. On the surface, they looked wealthy, Detective Rodriguez explained in our exclusive interview. But when you dug deeper, you found a couple drowning in debt. Credit card balances totaling $177,000 across 12 different cards. A mortgage that was 3 months behind with foreclosure proceedings already initiated by the bank. Investment accounts that had been completely drained to cover minimum payments. The couple had made a series of catastrophic financial decisions over the previous 2 years. Sarah had convinced David to invest their entire retirement savings, nearly $300,000, in a cryptocurrency venture that her ex-boyfriend Marcus Thompson had recommended. The investment had lost 95% of its value when the cryptocurrency market crashed in late 2022. But here's where the story takes its first truly dark turn. Despite their mounting debts, Sarah had been secretly taking out life insurance policies on her husband. Lots of them. David had a standard $500,000 life insurance policy through his employer at TechFlow Industries. But, unbeknownst to him, Sarah had been busy securing additional coverage. In September 2022, she purchased a $1.8 million policy from Mutual Life Insurance. In November, she added another $1.2 million policy from Secure Life. In January 2023, just 2 months before David's death, she secured a final $800,000 policy from Guardian Financial. The total death benefit if David died, $4.3 million. Maria Gonzalez, the insurance agent who sold Sarah the largest policy, would later provide crucial testimony about Sarah's behavior during their meetings. Most people who buy life insurance ask about premiums, coverage details, medical exams. Maria recalled during her court testimony. Sarah only had one question: how quickly would the beneficiary receive the payout after filing a claim? She asked me that question at least 5 times during our meeting. She wanted specific timelines, down to the exact number of business days. Maria also remembered that Sarah had insisted on paying the premiums annually in advance, rather than monthly. She said she wanted to make sure the policies never lapsed. Maria testified. She paid over $118,000 in premiums up front, which was unusual given their apparent financial situation. What makes this even more chilling is that David never knew about these additional policies. Sarah had forged his signature on all the applications using samples from their joint tax returns and mortgage documents. She had even arranged for a medical examiner to meet David at his office under the pretense of a routine employee health screening, when it was actually for the life insurance medical exam. In December 2022, 4 months before his death, David Mitchell made a decision that would ultimately solve his own murder case. Concerned about a series of break-ins in the Cherry Creek neighborhood, he decided to install a comprehensive home security system. David researched different companies for weeks, reading reviews and comparing features. He finally chose Safeguard Home Systems, a Denver-based company that specialized in high-end residential security. The system he selected was top-of-the-line cameras in every room except the bedrooms and bathrooms, motion sensors on all doors and windows, and most importantly, 24-hour audio recording capabilities. Mr. Mitchell was very specific about what he wanted, recalled James Chen, the Safeguard technician who installed the system. He wanted full coverage of all common areas. He was particularly concerned about the kitchen, living room, and garage. He said those were the areas where an intruder would most likely enter or search for valuables. The system David chose had several features that would prove crucial to the investigation. First, all footage and audio were automatically uploaded to Safeguard's secure cloud servers, with a 90-day retention period. Second, the cameras had night vision and could capture clear video even in low-light conditions. Third, the audio recording was sensitive enough to pick up conversations from anywhere in the monitored rooms. David told his coworkers that the system gave him peace of mind. What he didn't realize was that it would also document every aspect of his deteriorating marriage, including his wife's gradual transformation from loving spouse to cold-blooded killer. The installation was completed on December 18, 2022. From that moment forward, every conversation in the Mitchell home was being recorded and preserved. Every argument, every threat, every moment of fear, it was all being captured by a system designed to protect the very man who would soon become its most important witness. Sarah was initially annoyed by the cameras. "Do we really need all this?" she complained to David on the day of installation, unaware that her words were being recorded. "It makes the house feel like a prison." David's response, captured clearly by the kitchen camera's audio system, would prove prophetic. "It's just for protection, Sarah. You never know who might be watching us." Indeed, someone was watching, technology was watching, and it was about to document one of the most premeditated murders in Colorado history. February 14, 2023, Valentine's Day. While most couples across America were celebrating love and romance, the Mitchell household was about to become a battlefield. The security cameras were about to capture an argument that would send chills down the spines of everyone who heard it during Sarah's trial. The evening started normally enough. David had come home from work at 6:15 p.m. with a bouquet of red roses and a box of Sarah's favorite chocolates from a gourmet shop downtown. The kitchen camera captured him setting the gifts on the counter and calling out cheerfully, "Happy Valentine's Day, sweetheart." Sarah's response was captured with crystal clarity by the audio system. "Is that supposed to make up for everything?" David, clearly confused, asked. "Make up for what? Sarah, what's wrong?" What followed was a 3-hour argument that revealed the true nature of Sarah Mitchell's character. The cameras captured every word, every gesture, every moment of escalating violence that would prove David was not living with a wife, but with a predator. At 7:23 p.m., Sarah began screaming accusations at David. The audio picks up her voice clearly. "You're worthless. You've ruined everything. Your stupid investments, your pathetic salary, your complete inability to provide for us. I should have never married you." David, trying desperately to de-escalate the situation, could be heard saying, "Sarah, please, let's talk about this calmly. The neighbors will hear." That's when the argument took a terrifying turn. The kitchen camera shows Sarah opening the drawer where they kept their knives. She pulled out a 10-inch carving knife and pointed it directly at David's chest. "Maybe I should just end this right now," she said, her voice suddenly deadly calm. The camera captures David's face going white with fear. "It would solve all our problems, wouldn't it?" David backed away slowly, his hands raised in a gesture of surrender. "Sarah, put the knife down. Please. You don't mean this." But Sarah's response revealed that this wasn't a moment of passion or temporary insanity. This was something far more calculated and terrifying. "Don't I?" she said, still holding the knife. "Do you have any idea how much money I could get if you were dead? Do you know how easy it would be to make it look like an accident?" The camera captured David backing all the way to the kitchen wall, trapped between his wife and the cabinets. "Sarah, you're scaring me. This isn't you." "This is exactly me," she replied. "This is who I've always been. You were just too stupid to see it." The confrontation lasted another 47 minutes. Sarah held that knife for the entire time, sometimes pointing it at David, sometimes waving it in the air, as she paced around the kitchen like a caged animal. David remained pressed against the wall, afraid to move or speak. Finally, at 8:47 p.m., Sarah seemed to regain some composure. She put the knife back in the drawer and walked out of the kitchen without another word. David remained frozen against the wall for another 10 minutes before finally moving. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was a preview of murder from a woman who had already begun planning her husband's death. While the security cameras were documenting Sarah's escalating violence inside the Mitchell home, her laptop computer was creating an equally damning digital trail. Digital forensics expert Dr. Amanda Walsh spent 3 weeks analyzing Sarah's online activity in the months leading up to David's murder. What she found was a methodical research project into how to commit the perfect murder. "I've analyzed computer evidence in hundreds of murder cases," Dr. Walsh testified during Sarah's trial. "I've never seen anyone so systematically research how to kill their spouse and get away with it." She approached murder like she was writing a business plan. The search history began innocuously enough in early January 2023. Sarah's initial searches were for marriage counseling and divorce attorneys. But by mid-January, her research had taken a much darker turn. January 15th, 11:47 p.m. How to make death look like natural causes. January 18th, 2:33 a.m. Undetectable poisons for humans. January 20th, 9:15 p.m. How long does autopsy take? January 22nd, 45 a.m. Can life insurance company refuse to pay? But it was the searches from late January that revealed Sarah's true intentions. January 25th, 3:22 a.m. Rohypnol effects on 180-pound man. January 27th, 10:30 p.m. Carbon monoxide poisoning looks like suicide. January 29th, 12:15 a.m. How to buy Rohypnol without prescription. Dr. Walsh's analysis revealed that Sarah had spent over 40 hours researching murder methods, with particular focus on making death appear to be suicide. She had visited forums on the dark web where people discussed undetectable poisons. She had downloaded medical textbooks about toxicology. She had even researched the specific gas concentrations needed to cause death by carbon monoxide poisoning. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of Sarah's research was how she planned to handle the aftermath of David's death. Her search history showed extensive research into life insurance claim procedures, grief counseling resources, and even funeral planning services. February 2nd, 7:45 p.m. How long does life insurance investigation take after suicide? February 5th, 9:30 p.m. Average payout time for life insurance claims. February 8th, 11:20 p.m. Signs of grieving widow behavior. February 12th, 20:00 a.m. How to delete browser history permanently. The most disturbing search came just 2 days before David's death. February 13th, 2:30 a.m. How to act devastated when spouse dies. Dr. Walsh also discovered that Sarah had been researching her accomplice, Marcus Thompson. She had looked up his criminal history, his current address, and even his social media profiles. She knew exactly who she was recruiting to help her commit murder. The search history shows a woman who left nothing to chance. Detective Rodriguez explained. She researched every aspect of the crime, from the murder method to the cover-up to her performance as a grieving widow. This wasn't a crime of passion. This was a business transaction to her. Sarah Mitchell wasn't planning to commit murder alone. Phone records obtained by investigators revealed that she had rekindled a relationship with someone from her past, someone with both the motive and the means to help her kill her husband. Marcus Thompson, 41, was Sarah's ex-boyfriend from college. They had dated for 3 years before Sarah met David, and their relationship had ended badly when Marcus was arrested for aggravated assault in 2005. He had spent 4 years in prison and had been released on parole in 2009. When Sarah reconnected with Marcus in late 2022, he was working as a day laborer and living in a rundown apartment in Aurora, Colorado. He had struggled to find steady employment due to his criminal record, and he was bitter about how his life had turned out while Sarah had seemingly achieved success and wealth. Phone records show that Sarah first contacted Marcus on December 3, 2022, just 2 weeks before David installed the home security system. Their initial conversations were nostalgic, reminiscing about their college days and catching up on their lives, but the tone of their communications quickly changed. The security system in the Mitchell home captured several of Sarah's phone conversations with Marcus, including ones where she laid out her plan in shocking detail. On January 28, 2023, at 10:45 p.m., Sarah called Marcus from her kitchen. The audio system captured both sides of the conversation. Clearly, "I need your help with something," Sarah said. "What kind of help?" Marcus replied, his voice wary. "The kind that could make us both rich," Sarah responded. "David has life insurance policies worth over $4 million. If something happened to him, I'd be willing to share that money with someone who helped me solve my problem." Marcus was quiet for a long moment before responding. "Are you talking about what I think you're talking about?" "I'm talking about freedom, Marcus. Freedom from a marriage that's destroying me and financial security for both of us. Are you interested?" The conversation continued for another 37 minutes, with Sarah outlining her research into different murder methods and Marcus asking detailed questions about David's schedule and the layout of their home. By February, their conversations had become specific planning sessions. The security system captured a particularly damning call on February 20th. "It has to look natural, Marcus," Sarah said. "No signs of struggle. No evidence that anyone else was involved. I need that insurance money, and I need it clean." Marcus's response chilled investigators. "Don't worry, baby, I know exactly how to handle this. Your husband won't know what hit him. Carbon monoxide is perfect. It looks like suicide, and there's no way to trace it back to us." "What do you need from me?" Sarah asked. "Access to the house, the garage, and something to knock him out first. I can handle the rest. Phone records show that Sarah and Marcus exchanged over 200 text messages and had more than 50 phone calls in the 6 weeks leading up to David's murder. They met in person at least a dozen times, always at locations away from Sarah's neighborhood, where they wouldn't be recognized. Detective Rodriguez later discovered that Sarah had paid Marcus $5,000 up front in January, with the promise of $500,000 more after David's death, and the insurance money was collected. For Marcus, who was struggling financially, it was an offer he couldn't refuse. What neither Sarah nor Marcus realized was that every word of their planning was being recorded and stored in the cloud, creating an unbreakable digital chain of evidence that would connect them both to the crime. The last week of David Mitchell's life was captured in horrifying detail by his own security system. The cameras documented a man living in fear, completely unaware that his wife was in the final stages of planning his murder. March 8th through March 14th, 2023. 7 days that would reveal the true depth of Sarah Mitchell's deception and the meticulous nature of her murderous plan. On March 8th, the kitchen camera captured Sarah making what she told David was a trial run of a new coffee blend she wanted to serve at an upcoming real estate client meeting. What David didn't know was that Sarah was practicing dissolving Rohypnol tablets in hot liquid, timing how long it took for the drug to become completely undetectable. She had obtained the Rohypnol through Marcus, who had connections in Denver's underground drug market. The security system captured her testing different amounts of the drug in various beverages, carefully documenting which combinations worked best and how quickly they took effect. On March 9th, Sarah began working late every night, telling David she had several important real estate deals closing and needed to meet with clients. The security cameras captured David eating dinner alone, watching television by himself and going to bed without his wife. What David didn't know was that Sarah wasn't meeting with real estate clients. She was meeting with Marcus, finalizing the details of their murderous plan. March 10th brought one of the most chilling pieces of evidence captured by the security system. At 2:30 p.m. while David was at work, Sarah practiced her reaction to finding David's body. She stood in front of the bathroom mirror for over an hour, working on her facial expressions and rehearsing what she would say to 911 operators. David? David? Oh my God, he's not breathing, she practiced, checking her reflection to see if she looked convincingly distraught. She tried different tones of voice, different levels of hysteria, different ways of describing the scene she and Marcus would create. She practiced crying on command, working on making tears appear at will. She rehearsed the exact words she would use to describe finding David's body in the garage. She even practiced hyperventilating to make herself sound more panicked on the phone. The cameras captured her doing this macabre rehearsal multiple times throughout the week, each time refining her performance like an actress preparing for the role of her life, the role of a grieving widow.
On March 12th,
Sarah made her final preparations. The security system recorded her moving items around in the garage, clearing a space where David's car would be positioned. She tested the garage door opener multiple times, timing how long it took to open and close. She even practiced attaching a hose to a car's exhaust pipe, working out the logistics of the murder scene she and Marcus would create. March 13th was David's last full day of life, though he had no way of knowing it. The cameras captured him trying to reconnect with his wife, asking her if they could spend the evening together watching a movie. Sarah's response was captured clearly by the audio system. "I'm too busy for movies, David. Some of us have important work to do." That night, Sarah made her final phone call to Marcus. The security system captured her side of the conversation. "Tomorrow night, he'll be home late from work. Everything will be ready. Are you sure you can handle this?" Marcus's response, though not captured by the audio system, was apparently affirmative, because Sarah's final words were, "Good. By Thursday morning, I'll be a very wealthy widow." March 14th was David Mitchell's last day alive. The morning cameras captured him kissing Sarah goodbye as he left for work, telling her he loved her. Sarah's response was barely audible. "I'll see you tonight." She had no idea that those words were being recorded by the security system David had installed to protect their home. Technology was watching, documenting every moment of her deception, creating a permanent record of her lies. David Mitchell would never make it to Thursday morning. March 15th, 2023, 11:43 p.m. The timestamp on the security camera footage marks the exact moment David Mitchell walked into his home for the last time. He had spent another late evening at the office, working on a project that his supervisor would later say wasn't urgent. David was simply avoiding going home, though he couldn't have articulated why. The garage camera captured David's BMW pulling into the driveway. The interior cameras show him entering through the garage door, setting down his briefcase in the hallway, and loosening his tie. He looked exhausted, not just physically tired, but emotionally drained from months of walking on eggshells in his own home. "Sarah, I'm home," David called out as he hung his jacket in the front closet. His voice echoed through the house, picked up clearly by multiple audio sensors. There was no immediate response. Sarah was in the kitchen, waiting in position like a predator preparing to strike. She had been there for over an hour, making final preparations for what she planned to be David's last meal. On the kitchen counter sat a white ceramic mug filled with freshly brewed coffee. To David, it would look like a loving gesture from his wife, a warm cup of coffee, after a long day at work. In reality, it was a weapon. Sarah had dissolved 3 Rohypnol tablets in the coffee, the same drug she had been practicing with for weeks. She had researched the exact dosage needed to incapacitate a 180-pound man without immediately killing him. The kitchen camera captured Sarah's face as she heard David's footsteps approaching. There was no love in her expression, no remorse, no hesitation. She looked like a businesswoman about to close an important deal. At 11:48 p.m., David entered the kitchen. The cameras captured every detail of what happened next. "You look tired, honey," Sarah said sweetly, her voice filled with false concern. "I made you some coffee, that new Colombian blend you liked." David smiled gratefully, clearly touched by what he perceived as a rare gesture of kindness from his wife. "Thank you, Sarah. That's really thoughtful." The camera shows David taking the mug from Sarah's hands. His fingers brushed against hers, and for just a moment, he looked into her eyes with the same love he had felt for her for 10 years. He had no idea he was looking into the eyes of his killer. "It's still hot, so be careful," Sarah warned. Though her concern was not for David's comfort, she needed him to drink the entire cup to ensure the Rohypnol took full effect. David took his first sip at 11:50 p.m. The coffee was excellent. Sarah had used his favorite blend to mask any bitter taste from the dissolved drugs. He drank slowly, savoring what he thought was a moment of peace with his wife. "How was work today?" Sarah asked, making small talk while she watched David consume the poisoned coffee. Her performance was flawless. She sounded like a caring wife interested in her husband's day. David talked about his projects, his coworkers, his plans for the weekend. Normal conversation between a married couple, except that one of them was slowly being drugged by the other. The cameras captured every word, every gesture, every moment of this final conversation between husband and wife. By 11:58 p.m., David had finished the entire cup of coffee. Sarah immediately took the mug from him and began washing it in the sink, destroying any evidence of what she had done. "I think I'll head up to bed," David said, but his words were already beginning to slur slightly. "Long day tomorrow." "Of course, honey," Sarah replied, still washing the mug with meticulous care. "I'll be up in a few minutes." David started to leave the kitchen, but by 12:03 a.m., the effects of the Rohypnol were becoming apparent. The hallway camera captured him stumbling slightly, catching himself against the wall. "Sarah?" he called out, confusion evident in his voice. "I don't feel very good." That's when Sarah knew her plan was working perfectly. The drugs were taking effect exactly as her research had predicted. David was becoming incapacitated, but he was still conscious enough to be moved. And that's when Marcus Thompson entered through the back door that Sarah had unlocked for him 30 minutes earlier. At 12:05 a.m. on March 16, 2023, Marcus Thompson stepped into the Mitchell home through the back door. He was wearing all black clothing, latex gloves, and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. He moved with the confidence of someone who had planned this moment carefully. The security cameras captured Marcus's entrance, though Sarah had tried to position him to avoid the main camera angles. What she didn't realize was that the system had motion sensors that automatically adjusted camera positions to track movement throughout the house. David was now slumped against the hallway wall, the Rohypnol making it impossible for him to stand on his own. His eyes were open, but glazed and unfocused. He was conscious enough to understand that something was terribly wrong, but too drugged to defend himself or call for help. "Is he ready?" Marcus asked Sarah, his voice picked up clearly by the audio system. "He can barely stand," Sarah replied with clinical detachment. "The drugs are working perfectly." What happened next was captured in audio detail by the security system's sensitive microphones. David, despite his heavily impaired state, seemed to recognize that his life was in danger. "Please," he whispered, his voice barely audible, but still picked up by the recording equipment. The word was slurred, but unmistakably a plea for mercy. Sarah's response was recorded with crystal clarity, and it would become one of the most damning pieces of evidence in her trial. "You're worth more to me dead than alive, David." Marcus moved efficiently, grabbing David under the arms and beginning to drag him toward the garage. David tried to resist, but the combination of the drugs and his smaller physical stature, compared to Marcus, made resistance impossible. "Help me get him to the car," Marcus instructed Sarah. The cameras captured Sarah helping to drag her husband through their home toward the garage, where he would die. She showed no emotion, no hesitation, no sign of the woman who had once promised to love and cherish this man in sickness and in health. The garage cameras documented the final stage of David Mitchell's life. Marcus had prepared the murder scene in advance, bringing a small tank of compressed carbon monoxide gas and a length of flexible tubing. The plan was elegant in its simplicity: make David's death look like suicide by carbon monoxide poisoning in his own car. They placed the semi-conscious David in the driver's seat of his BMW. His head lolled to one side and he was breathing heavily but regularly. The drugs had left him conscious but completely helpless. Marcus connected the tubing to the compressed gas tank and fed the other end through the car's partially opened window. The garage door remained closed, which would support the suicide narrative they were trying to create. "Make sure the connection is tight," Sarah instructed, checking the hose attachment. "We can't have any leaks." "I know what I'm doing," Marcus replied. "This will look exactly like suicide. He's depressed about your financial problems, and he chose the easy way out." The audio system captured David's final words, spoken in a drug-slurred whisper that would haunt everyone who heard it during the trial. "Sarah, why?" Her response was captured with perfect clarity. "Because I never loved you. I only married you for your money, and now I need more money than you can provide alive." Marcus activated the gas flow at 12:47 a.m. The compressed carbon monoxide began filling the car's interior, displacing the oxygen that David needed to survive. Unlike the gradual poisoning that would occur from a running car engine, the compressed gas worked quickly and efficiently. David lost consciousness within minutes. His vital signs, as later determined by the medical examiner, ceased at approximately 1:15 a.m. on March 16, 2023. But Sarah and Marcus weren't finished. They spent the next 3 hours staging the scene to support their fictional narrative of suicide. After David Mitchell died, Sarah and Marcus had 3 hours of work ahead of them. They needed to transform a murder scene into what appeared to be a suicide, and the security cameras captured every moment of their elaborate deception. From 1:15 a.m. to 4:20 a.m., the garage cameras documented two killers methodically staging one of the most calculated cover-ups in Colorado criminal history. First, they had to deal with the evidence of the compressed gas tank. Marcus carefully disconnected the tubing and removed the tank from the garage. Loading it into his pickup truck parked 3 blocks away, he would later dump it in a construction site dumpster, thinking it would never be found. He was wrong. Police would recover it 2 weeks later. Next, they needed to create the illusion that David had used his car's exhaust to poison himself. Marcus started the BMW's engine and connected a garden hose from the exhaust pipe to the car's interior through a cracked window. This would support the narrative that David had committed suicide using carbon monoxide from his own vehicle. But there was a problem with their plan that they didn't anticipate. The garage door opener was connected to the home's smart system, which automatically logged every activation with a precise timestamp. For their suicide story to work, David would have needed to start the car engine with the garage door closed, then let the exhaust fumes build up in the enclosed space. However, the system logs showed that the garage door had never been opened during the time frame when David was supposedly running the car engine. This meant that if David had really committed suicide using his car's exhaust, he would have died from carbon monoxide poisoning much more slowly than the medical evidence indicated. The security cameras captured Sarah and Marcus discussing this problem in real time. "Wait," Sarah said at 2:30 a.m. "If the garage door was closed the whole time, wouldn't it have taken longer for him to die?" Marcus, clearly not having thought this through completely, replied, "Maybe people won't notice. It's close enough." "Close enough?" Sarah's voice rose with panic. "This has to be perfect. If they figure out something's wrong—" "Relax," Marcus interrupted. "Dad is dead. They'll see the hose, they'll see the carbon monoxide in his blood, and they'll rule it suicide. Nobody's going to check garage door logs." Marcus was wrong about that too. The cameras also captured them staging other elements of the scene. They positioned David's body to make it look like he had arranged himself in the car voluntarily. They scattered some of David's antidepressant pills around the garage floor to suggest mental instability. They even placed a fake suicide note on the passenger seat, A note that Sarah had written in her own handwriting, though she tried to disguise it. The suicide note read, "I can't take the financial pressure anymore. Sarah deserves better than what I can provide. Please don't blame yourself. This is my choice. I love you, David." Handwriting experts would later determine that while Sarah had tried to mimic David's writing style, several letter formations and pen pressure patterns were distinctly her own. At 3:45 a.m., they made their final preparations. Sarah changed clothes, putting on a nightgown and robe, to support her story that she had been sleeping when she discovered David's body. Marcus gathered his tools and prepared to leave through the back door. But before he left, the cameras captured one final conversation that would seal both of their fates. "Are you sure about the timeline?" Sarah asked nervously. "I'll be long gone before you call 911, Marcus assured her. "Wait at least 30 minutes after I leave, then go out to the garage and find the body. Remember to act shocked." "I've been practicing," Sarah replied. "I know exactly what to do." "Good. By tomorrow afternoon, you'll be filing life insurance claims, and by next month, we'll both be rich." Marcus left through the back door at 4:10 a.m. Sarah waited exactly 32 minutes, then began the performance she had been rehearsing for weeks. At 4:42 a.m., Sarah called 911, performing the grieving widow role she had rehearsed for weeks. "My husband, he's in the garage. I think he's dead," she cried. But investigators would soon discover the truth. The comprehensive digital evidence, security footage, audio recordings, internet searches, phone records, and forensic analysis painted a complete picture of premeditated murder. Sarah Mitchell was convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy. She was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Marcus Thompson received the same sentence as her accomplice. David's security system, installed to protect his family, ultimately delivered justice for his murder. The Mitchell case stands as a chilling reminder that sometimes the most dangerous predators are the ones we trust most. David's own security system became his final witness, ensuring that his killers couldn't escape justice. If this case affected you as much as it affected me, please take a moment to honor David's memory by subscribing to Crime Vault. Every subscription helps us continue investigating cases like this one, giving voice to victims and seeking truth for families who deserve justice. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join our community of over 500,000 viewers who believe that every victim deserves their story told. Share this video with someone who appreciates true crime investigation. It helps more people discover these important stories. We have over 200 solved and unsolved cases in our archive, with new investigations every week. From cold cases to recent crimes, we're committed to thorough research and respectful storytelling. What case should we investigate next? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, this has been Crime Vault. Stay safe out there.